Hey, how's it going guys? Welcome to another PyQt5 tutorial video. In this video, we're going to learn how to build this expense data entry tool using the PyQt5 library in Python. So let's take a look at this application. So from this application, I'm using the QMainWindow class to create the Windows interface. And inside this data entry form, so I have a table on the left-hand side. And on the right hand side is the fields that allows me to perform the data entry. So here the add button is disabled, but if I type something in the description field, so let's say car insurance, and I'm going to press the tab key, and that takes me to the price field. Now if I enter some numbers, and so here I can click on this add button and to add the entry. Now here I have a plot button, so when I click on the plot button, that's going to create a pie chart that based on the expenses in this table. It's going to give me the breakdown of how much money I spent for each item. And lastly, we have this clear button, which is going to clear everything, the table and the pie chart. Now I'm going to close this application by clicking the quit button, and that's going to close the application. So that's the data entry application we're going to build in this video. So with that being said, let's get started. I'm going to start by inserting my Python code snippet. So from this application, I'm going to use the system module. And I'm also going to import the CSV module. And so let me put the application back. So I forgot to show you one more thing. So here we have a menu bar. And from the file menu bar, we have two options. We have the export to CSV file option. We also have the exit application option. So by clicking on the export to CSV file, we're going to export this table to a CSV file. And now let me close the application. Now let's continue. So we import the CSV module. Now we need to import the remaining modules, not modules, classes that we'll need to build this application. So I'm going to create my window application using the QMainWindow class, and we need a push button, QAction, QHeader view, QLineEdit, and the label, and the table widget, widget item. And we also need to set out layouts. And that's it from the QTableWidget module. Now from the Qt GUI module, I need the QPainter, QStandard item model, and an icon. And I'm also going to import a Qt class. And for the charting, we'll use the Qt chart module. Alright, so that's all the classes that we'll be using for this application. As you can see that even though it's not a very complex application, but we still need to use quite many classes to build the data entry form. So let's start by creating the MainWindow class first. So I'm going to call this class MainWindow, and the MainWindow is going to be the application interface that we're going to put different widgets on top of the interface. And from the MainWindow class, I have a widget parameter. So that means later on we're going to build another class to pass the widget object, and we're going to basically take this widget object and add to the main window. So let's give our window title. So let's call this expense data entry form. And so I saved my Python script under the data entry form folder, and inside this folder I have this expense image. So let me open the file, And this is the image that I'm going to add to my data entry form application. So to add an icon to your window application, we're going to use the set window icon method. And we need to pass the QIcon class. And we'll pass the file path. Now let's take a look at, so let me just launch the application just to make sure that I haven't made any typo yet. Okay, so here I need to activate my virtual environment first. And so here's my first typo. So it should be QLineEdit. And here's my second typo. So I have extra Qt. So here I get a type error. That means this class requires a parameter, which is the widget object parameter. So I'm going to just create something kind of like a placeholder. I'm going to call this placeholder X, and I'll pass the X to the main window. Okay, now so this is what we have so far. Nothing else. Just a very simple window interface. We do have the title and the icon, so that looks pretty good so far. And let's resize the window. So I'm going to do 1200 by 600. Here I'm going to create a menu bar. So by default, when you use QMainWindow class to build your PyQt5 application, it comes with the menu bar and the status bar by default. So we don't actually have to manually create the menu bar and the status bar. So here I can just pass the menu bar to a menu bar object. And I want to create my file menu. Oops. So here I'm going to create an action, and this action is going to export the table to a CSV file. And let's call the action object export action. So we'll provide the caption export to CSV, and we'll pass the parent object. And we'll give a shortcut. So let's do Ctrl E. So that was the shortcut that I was using before. And we need to attach a method to the export action. So we haven't created a method yet, but right now I'm going to create this line right here as the placeholder. So we're going to connect the export action to the trigger signal. So I'll do triggered.connect. And here I don't have the method created yet, so I'm going to just comment the line real quick. I'll come back. So here I'm going to type to do, so that means I'll come back. And it's going to be the exit action. So I'm going to give a shortcut Ctrl Q. Oops. For the exit action, since this action is purely going to close the application, so what we can do is we can do exit action .triggered.connect, and I'm going to use the lambda function, so I can do app.quit, and like that. Now we need to add those two actions to our file menu item. So the first action will be export action, and the second action will be exit action. Alright, now here I'm going to set the central widget. So I'll pass the widget object. Right now the widget object is basically nothing, so just an empty string. If I launch the application, and so here I made a typo. So here another typo. Oops. So if I try to launch the application, it's going to give me the type error because the setCentralWidget is expecting a widget object, not a string. So we'll come back to this later. I'll type to do. Now that's all the Python script that we need to type for the main window class. So we still need to create the export to CSV method. Actually, let's do that right now. So let's call this method export to CSV. And I'm going to insert air handle. And I'm using my other laptop to make this tutorial. I'm not really used to the keyboard yet, so I may make a lot of typos throughout this video. So we're going to, let's see, so let's give a parameter. So let's call this file name. And we're going to specify the file name in parameter type to string. And let's do with open file name. And it's going to be write mode. And for each new line, we're going to use the empty string as file. And we're going to create a writer object first. So using the CSV library, we're going to use the writer method, and we'll pass the file name. Now we can write each row from the table widget that we haven't created yet. So you'll be write row, and let's see. I haven't created the table widget yet, so it's really hard to figure out how the Python code should be. But actually, let me comment these two lines real quick. I'll come back to this later. So I'll type to do, but I'll give a message first. CSV file exported. And here I'm going to close the file. Now I'll come back to the write row method later. But for now, this is everything for the main window class. And let me just launch the application to see what it looks like right now. So we have the file, and we have the export to CSV menu in the exit menu. Alright, now if I click on the exit menu item, and that's going to close the application. Actually, let me increase the font size. I just noticed that the font size is a little bit small, so I apologize for that. Now I think this is going to be a little bit easier for you guys to see. Now we create the main window, and that's basically the container that holds all the widgets. Now we need to create a data entry form. So the data entry form is basically different widgets putting together in one view, and we're going to add that view to the main window object instance. So let's call this data entry and form. So data entry form, and I'm going to pass the QWidget class as the parent class. So I'm going to create items attribute, and this is going to be the property that I'm going to check how many items I have in my table. And let's create some dummy data first. So let me just do a copy paste from my notes. I named the dummy data attribute underscore data. So it's basically a dictionary with the key being the description and the value being the price. So we're going to construct our left hand side widget. which is the table holds all the records. And let's call the table widget just table. Just something easy to remember. And we know this table has 2 columns. So I'm going to use the set column count. And I'll pass 2 as an indication of 2 columns. And here I'm going to enter the header names. So the first column header name will be description, and the second column will be price. Now we can replace the X with something else now. So I'm going to name this W as widget, and we're going to construct data entry form instance. And we'll replace the X with W. Now let's launch the application to see what I have so far. So, okay. So I forgot to, so here I'm going to uncomment this line. Okay, now that looks, I guess that looks okay. Now let's continue. Here I'm going to auto resize the column width. So by using the self.table, the horizontal header dot set session resize mode, and from the QHeaderView class there's an enumeration called stretch. This line right here is going to auto expand the column width, so it will auto fit the table widget, so there won't be any empty space. So I'm curious to see what the application looks like so far. Here I'm going to create my layout object, and I'll be using the Q horizontal box layout, and I'll add the table widget. So here I'm going to assign 50. So the proportion allocation is going to be 50 and 50. And you can adjust the proportion based on your preference. You don't necessarily need to set that to 50-50. And so here I'm going to set the layout by passing the self.layout object. Okay, now I can launch the application, and this time we should see something new in our application. So here's our table widget. The reason why the table widget is taking all the space from the window application is that, so right here, this line right here, and because we're using the set session resize mode to stretch, this line right here is going to expand the table widget to fit the entire window space. Now we have the table widget created. Now let's go ahead and create our chart widget. So I'm going to create my chart view object. And to make the pie chart look a little bit more better, just because the pixel by default doesn't render very well. So there's so from the QPainter class, there's a type called anti-aliasing, and which is going to basically smooth the edge of the pie chart. So here let me create the layout for the right hand side. So I'm going to call this layout right, and it's going to be vertical box layout. And let's add the chart view to the layout. And here from the main layout object, I'm actually going to add the right layout as well. So I'll use the add layout method. I'll pass the layout right object. And here I'm going to assign 50% as my proportional allocation. Now let me launch the application. Okay. Now here we have the table widget on the left hand side, and on the right hand side is our container that, or basically the layout container, which is going to hold all the widgets that we'll be using to perform the data entry, as well as the chart view. So the first field is going to be the description field. So I'm going to call this line edit description. And the second field will be the price. And we also need a button. Actually, 2 buttons. Actually, how many buttons? Actually, add, clear, quit, and plot. Okay, 4 buttons. So let's do button add. And it's going to add a new entry. And it's going to clear everything. And it's going to close the application. And this one will be to plot the pie chart. I'm going to set the add button to disable first. Now I need to add all the widgets to the layout. So let me set the spacing first. So, okay, so when you add widgets to your layout, you have to think about like which widget will go first. So I want to display the label first. So here I'll pass the label as description. And after the label, I want to add the description field. Now we need to repeat the process again for the pricing. Now if I launch the application, so here on the right hand side is the description first and the price second. And now I need to add the buttons. Add entry button will go first. And the plotting button will go second. And this one will be clear. And this one will be exit. I should quit, so going to quit application. In terms of designing the form, and that's pretty much everything. So the chart should go here. So let's put this in between the plot button and the clear button. Okay, I think that looks a little bit better. Maybe let me check. So something doesn't look right. Hold on. Okay, let me finish the remaining stuff first, and we'll come back to fix that issue. Now we're finished designing the data entry form. Now we need to create the methods to first of all populate the dummy data, as well as we're going to create different methods to connect to all the buttons. So I'm going to create the field table method, and this method is going to populate the dummy data. So we're going to have the data parameter. So here I'm going to create a data object, and basically to store the data to this attribute. So here I'm going to say that if the data object that the field table method receive is none, then I want to fill the table with the dummy data. But otherwise, if the data object that the field table method receives is not empty, then I want to use the data set. And here I'm going to write a for loop to populate the items in my table widget. So here we can say that for description and price in data.items. And I'll call this description item. So we need to create each item with the QTableWidget item class. And since price is going to be a float data type or double data type, and so here I'm going to format the price with 2. So I'm going to set that to 2 decimal points. For the price item, I'm going to set the alignment, or the vertical and the horizontal alignment to center, so it doesn't look awkward. Okay, so we'll set the horizontal alignment to the right, and for the vertical we'll set that to the center. So here I'm going to insert a new row, so based on the self item attribute that we create in the beginning. So this is basically saying that I want to insert a new row, give me the row index. I always want to track the last row index, so that's why I create the self.items attribute. So we're going to populate the value. So we're going to pass the row index first, and this is going to be the first column. And this is going to be the second column. And I need to update the items attribute. Okay, now here let me execute the field table method at the end. So that's going to populate the records in our table widget. And let me just do a test run real quick. Okay, so everything looks good so far. There's still one extra space. I don't know why it's there, but I'll fix it later. So here, let me just take a look at the description. And so here we can modify the description if we want to, and we can also modify the price. And right now, we haven't attached any of the buttons to any of the method yet. So right now, if I click on any of the button, it's not going to do anything. Now let's close the application. And we're going to grab the text from the description field and the price field. So here I can just grab these lines right here. And let me just double check. Okay, so I think that looks okay. After we add the items to our table widget, we need to clear the fields. So to do that, I'm just going to pass the empty string. And that's for the add entry method. Now let's continue. So we're going to create the check disable method first. And this method is going to use to check if we need to enable or disable the add button. So here I'm going to say that if both the description field and the price field is not empty, then I'm going to enable the button. Otherwise, I'm going to disable it. And this one's going to be reset the table button. So let's call this the method reset table. And we're going to set the table row count to 0. And we'll set the items attribute back to 0 as well. So this is going to clear the chart. And we're almost finished. So yeah, just a couple more things left to do. So this one will be creating the pie chart. And let's call this graph chart. Since if you want to, you can change the chart type to a bar chart, to line chart. But for me, I prefer pie chart for this type of stuff. So I'm going to create a QPy series. So I'm going to call this object series just to make the naming convention a little bit more simplified. So let's go ahead and populate the series values. So we'll take the table row count. And we'll grab the text. And I also need to grab the value. So I'm going to convert the, so when we retrieve the price text from the LineEdit price object, the data type is going to be a string. So we need to convert the value from string to a float. So that's why I'm using the float function to converting the string to a numerical value. So I'm going to replace the dollar symbol with the empty space. And after that, I can append the text and the value to the pie series. And here I'm going to add the series to the pie chart. And this is going to be, we're going to create the legend. We're going to position the legend on the top. And lastly, if we want to display the chart, we need to pass the chart object to the chart view. Alright, now that should be all the methods that we need to create. So the only thing left to do is we need to connect all the widgets to their appropriate methods. So I'm going to do that after I set the layout. So here, let me remove the extra space. Right, let's do the quit button first. So because that seems to be the easiest one. And this is going to be the same function that we're going to pass to the file menu, the quit file menu. And next, I'm going to do the clear button. So I'm not doing this in a particular order. I usually start from the simplest method first. So this is going to be reset table. And this is going to be the plotting pie chart button. And the last one will be the add entry button. Okay, now that's for the buttons. We still need to connect the method to the text fields. So let me do the description field first. So we're going to trigger the events every time when the description field gets updated. So we use the text change signal. And here I'm going to specify my data type. So to as a string. I'm going to pass the check disable method. Oops. And this is going to be the price. Oops. And this is going to be the price. So I'll pass the same method. So here I made a typo. Should be check disable. Alright, I think that's everything. Hopefully there are no typos or anything. Let's take a look. Okay, there's typos. Here's an extra L. Oh, so here, let me fix that. So here I still have this empty area right here. So let me troubleshoot this issue first, and I'll be back. So I figured out the issue. So the issue was that, so here I accidentally add the chart view widget to the layer on the right. So that was an extra. So that's why we have this extra area on the top. But if I delete that line, and that should fix it. Okay, now let me launch the application. So this is the final product. Now if I type something in the description field, so let's do car insurance, and for the price let's do 420, and I'll click on add. Okay, so here I have an error, and the issue here is I forgot to convert the price to a float data type. Now let's try again. So car insurance and 420, and I'll add, and okay, so float is not defined. Okay, and so that's the issue with building a PyQt5 application. So you just have to keep testing until until everything is configured correctly. So here I'm going to type car insurance. Let's do 400. Okay, and so here we have the new entry, car insurance, for the amount of $400. The fields got clear after we add the entry, and the button went back to disable, which is great. So which is the behavior that we want. And let me add one more thing. So buy a new laptop. So here if I empty out so here if I type something, the add button is going to enable. But if I press backspace, and now if I press backspace again, the button is going to be disabled. And ideally, I should insert a handle to address the issue that if I enter a price that is not a float data type or number data type, so if I type something like price, and if I click on add, and that's what gives me, and I'm going to get a value error. It's okay. So let's do it right now. So here let's do try it. And accept. So we'll do value error, and I'm just going to use pass to ignore the error. So if I do a new laptop, let me change this to hello, and that's going to ignore the method, and it's going to basically not do anything. Now if we change the price value from a string to a number, let's do 588.50. And the add entry method is going to fire and add this new entry, a new laptop, to our table. Now let's test the plot button. So here we have we get an error, and let me take a look. So the issue here is a typo, should be row counts. And I'm not going to add new entry since I know the add button is working. If I click on plot, okay, table is no, oh, should be lowercase r. Okay, and here's, I need to replace so I need to use the $sign, not the percentage symbol. Okay, now the plot button is working. So if I add new entry, for laptop, and let's do 6,000. And so here, the price of laptop represent a big chunk of the pie chart. And here's laptop. And let's do clear. So clear is working, and that's great. Now if I click on quit, and that's going to close the data entry form. So that's everything I'm going to cover in this video. And I'll post a Python script on my website, and I'll link the link in the description below. So I just realized that I forgot to finish the export to CSV file method, which is this one right here. So let's finish the code. So taking the writer object, and we're going to use the write row method to insert data to our CSV file. And from the main window class, so we know that we have this widget object, which contains the table widget. Now we can go ahead and populate the values. So let's do, so from the widget object, and we're going to get the header's name first. So we're going to use the horizontal header item, and this is going to be the first column. I'm going to just copy this code right here. I'm just going to make a copy, and I'll replace the 0 with 1. So that means that I want to retrieve the header name for the second column. And next, I need to iterate each row within my table widget and to transport the value from the table widget to the CSV file. So here I'm going to say for row number in range widget.table.row counts. So we're going to iterate each row first, and within each row we know there are only 2 columns, so we don't have to write another loop. We can directly reference the value. I'm going to pass the row index here, and it's going to be from the first column dot text, and this should be right row, and it's going to be the item from the second column. Okay, and that's it. Now let me just double check. So here this is my to-do item, so I need to connect the export action to the export to CSV method. Now let me launch the application. So here's my data entry form Python script, and if I go back and file and export to CSV file, so nothing happens. Oh, so I know why. So before we need to pass a file name, so let's do that. So here let's provide a file name, so expense report .csv CSV, and getting an error non-type. Okay, so let's do this. I'm going to manually set the file name for now, since I don't have a lot of time to troubleshoot. So I'm going to replace the file name with expense report.csv for now. And if I go to file and export, so argument 1. So let me troubleshoot real quick, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I figured out the issue. So here, this shouldn't be a file name, so we should replace the file name with the file object. Now if I go back and let me try again. So if I go to file and export to CSV, and this time I get widgets not defined. So let's finish fixing the errors. So the first error is I need to replace the object name with W. And I'm going to replace all the widget object. I'm going to rename the object name from widget to W. And here I made another typo, should be writer dot right row. Now if I go back and try to export the file, okay, now this time everything is working correctly. So if I go back to my data entry form folder, and here's the CSV file. So if I open the file, and here's our table from the table widget. So this is everything I'm going to cover in terms of finishing up the export CSV method. And as always, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys on the next video.